What did you say? It is framed at home. Next to the plaque where it says that we became a city. So.
Yeah, Maria. Yeah, Maria, you're muted. I don't know if
I just realized that. Hello, everyone.
Okay, so you can hear us, we can hear you. Thank you. If you want to mute again, that'd be helpful.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your volunteerism and wanting to serve your communities. We'll go ahead and call this organizational meeting of the Eastern Delaware County Joint Recreation District to order. It's 6:02 p.m. The first order of business that we have on the agenda beyond the call to order is taking your oaths of office. So you'll see a loose leaf of that oath that's also behind tab 1. So if you wouldn't mind standing with me and raising your right hand. Just repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Haley Watson,
Swear or affirm
to
to honestly and faithfully perform the duties
honestly and faithfully perform the duties
of my office as an appointed member
of my office as an appointed member
Board of Trustees of the Eastern Delaware County Joint Recreation District,
Board of Trustees of the Eastern Delaware County Joint Recreation District.
and I will support the constitutions of the United States of America
I will support the constitutions of the United States of America
and of the state of Ohio during the term of my office.
and of Ohio during the term of my office.
Congratulations. With that loose leaf copy, if you wouldn't mind, and this can be done after the meeting or during the meeting during discussion, filling in your name where you stated it during the oath, and then on the first line, signing for the byline, signing the oath, and then printing your name underneath that. And then I'll collect those after the meeting and notarize them, and we'll keep them for posterity and for future audit purposes. The next agenda item is our roll call. And before we call the roll, I'll just note that behind tab 2 is a draft roster of the Board of Trustees. You'll notice that there is a blank for address and phone information if you would like to provide that so that we could contact you in case there's a last minute need to do so. Please provide that information to me and we'll get it put into this roster, and that will be used and I think helpful for tracking board terms moving forward. But you can see that your public email addresses are currently listed with your associated name. So let's go ahead and call the roll, make sure we have quorum.
All right, Ms. Watson.
Here.
Mr. Elliott.
Here.
Ms. Greiger.
Here.
Mr. Coy.
Here.
Mr. Musacchio.
Here.
And Ms. Sabato is listening in, but will be marked as absent. That's just listed as, so it's listening in, but again, not a full participant in today's meeting.
Okay. Just for clarification, my name is Sabata.
Sabata, thank you.
And just to note, while we're talking with a virtual member, there was new legislation adopted by the Ohio General Assembly that allows meetings like joint recreation, bodies like joint recreation districts to adopt a virtual meeting policy so that you can, when you're not considering non-routine items of business, that you can have members join and participate virtually. So that might be something that the board wants to consider into the future in case anyone's traveling, if you have any last minute availability complications. But otherwise, according to Ohio Rise Code and open meetings law, one has to be present at the public meeting in order to participate in any voting. So introductions. So I'm Mike Ringel. You've been receiving some emails from me and Becky Princehorn. We're with the law firm Bricker Graydon. We helped the exploratory committee composed of Sunbury, Galena, and Berkshire consider the fact of creating a joint recreation district. And then I think, as you all are probably aware, you've been asked to kind of move that process forward in determining what recreational opportunities to present to the larger community. So
So I'm Daryl Hennessy. I'm the city administrator, of the city of Sunbury. I'm just here to take the role.
I am Hallie Watson. I represent the village of Galena.
Greg Elliott, I represent Berkshire Township.
Jody Greiger, I represent Sunbury.
Todd Mazzacchio, I represent Galena.
Bernie Coy, I represent the city of Sunbury.
Marie, did you want to
Maria, why
introduce
don't-
yourself?
Excuse me. Hi, I'm Maria Sabata. I'm representing Berkshire Township.
The next agenda item that we have, the revised code requires that every joint recreation district have a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. You also need a fiscal officer or treasurer, someone who's going to have their name on the entity's bank account, responsible for writing checks, investing the money that might be in that bank account whenever the entity receives some money to work with. We recommend combining the positions of secretary and treasurer. It just can make that a little bit more streamlined. The role of secretary, and this will be for the board's determination. We might be able to have staff, administrative staff from different from the city, for example, to help with note taking and developing minutes. But if the secretary of if the board wants to take on note taking itself or designate that role to someone, the secretary or their assistant would be able to do that. They also help with certifying all the resolutions that are passed. The treasurer is the fiscal officer for the entity. They have the signing authority on the bank account. They have the investing authority. Whenever the entity has its biennial audits, they'll probably be the point of contact for the auditor of state or the private audit firm that might get contracted the work to go over the entity's books. And then the chair obviously is the individual who is responsible for leading the meetings. The vice chair, the chair also often has delegated signing authority. So if you enter into contracts with consultants or some other services, they're usually the ones who are signing after it's been authorized by the board. And then the vice chair has the powers of the chair when the chair isn't available to act. So generally that'll be just running a meeting if the chair can't show up. With that being said, are there any people who want to volunteer for chair, vice chair, and secretary treasurer?
I'd be happy to volunteer to be the chair or the vice chair.
Question on the secretary treasurer.
Yes.
I'm thinking that should be someone with more experience. I don't know what experience we have here.
Yeah, does anybody here have financial experience? I do not.
I first thought would be to, have someone do that at least to start. Unless, I don't know what you guys think. But.
I can do that.
Okay.
I'm not a financial person, but I run a pretty large P&L, so I can do that. That's fine. My work. So I'm happy to do the treasurer.
You want to take on the role of secretary as well?
No.
Okay. So we can split that role. If we would like.
What is the secretary again? Can you go over the main points?
Sign the resolution certifying the records. And then if you'd like to take meeting minutes or delegate meeting minutes and providing those for the board. We'll get into the bylaws, proposed bylaws in a tab or two in a tab. And that has some more meat as to what the roles pertain to.
If Ms. Brownfield would like to do chair, I'll be vice chair. Or unless you said one.
Actually, it's Miss Watson.
Oh.
I know that my maiden name there. So
Apologies.
yeah, that would.
That work?
Yeah,
Okay.
that works for me. I can do secretary.
Okay.
Unless you really want it.
You'll be great, Jody.
Mr. Clay, if you really want to be the chair, I'd be happy to swap with you.
Figure it out. I think, stay as it is. It's fine.
As we'll talk about a little bit further on, officer positions are up for re-election every year. So there'll be plenty of time if you want to pursue a different role too.
So why don't we just at least officially for the record vote on that? So we'll open the nominations for chair.
Do you want to do as a slate?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that'll be the easiest way to do it, right?
Mhm.
So nominations for the chair, we have Ms. Watson. Any other nominations? Hearing none. Nomination for vice chair, we have Mr. Coy. Any other nominations? Hearing none. For the position of secretary, we have Ms. Greiger. Hearing no other nominations. And for the treasurer, we have Mr. Elliott. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. Is there a motion to close the nominations?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any objections to closing the nominations? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. All right, now we should take a roll call on the vote, or on the
Yes.
Yeah.
On the slate.
on the slate. All right, ready? Ms. Watson?
Approve. Yes,
Yes.
yeah, yes.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Elliott?
Yes.
Ms. Greiger? Mr. Coy?
Yes.
Mr. Muzacchio?
Yes.
Five yeas, motion approved.
Congratulations.
All right.
Next agenda item we have are some exploratory committee comments. We can go on the order of the agenda if we'd like, but Mayor St. John, if you have comments for the board?
All right, welcome to public service. First of all, thank you so much. Today is a great day. It's been a long time coming. Thank you, Ms. Sabada, for joining remotely, and thank you, board members. It's official today. So now that you are public servants, you are bound by the law of public servants, and we included in your packet all of the ethics laws. I'm not going to go into all of the sunshine laws. Some of you have worked in public service, but it's very important to know that a majority of you constitutes a quorum. A quorum is what constitutes the ability to hold a meeting or to vote on particular items. But it also means that 4 of you can't meet for coffee or go to Sizzle and Sound together and talk about the JRD. So that is one thing that you're legally bound by. That is the Ohio ethics laws.
Are we allowed to go to the Sizzle though?
Pardon me?
Are we allowed to go to the Sizzle?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool.
As long as you promote the JRD.
Together.
Yeah.
So why a joint recreation district? In short, we can achieve more together than any one of us can do by ourselves. So think Sunbury, Berkshire, Galena. Berkshire, the fastest growing township in the county. Sunbury, the fastest growing city in the county. The village of Galena, now the fastest village in the county. And we're in the fastest growing county in the state. And what better time than now? Now, I looked at the Delaware County regional planning statistics earlier today, and Sunbury has a population of 9,000, Berkshire 8,700, and 1,600 for the village of Galena. We're at 20,000 people right now, and that's, we're midway through a census period. So think about that. The 6 of you represent 20,000 residents. That's a tall order. It's greater than any one of us represents. So there's a big weight and responsibility on your shoulders, but you are the inaugural board, and you were chosen because you're special. You have special talents. You have a very diverse board in terms of skill set and background, and that's why you were chosen. So it's a tall order to do what the exploratory committee would like for you to do, and that is to sprint as fast as you possibly can to gather the information of the public, the demands from the public. The number one question I get is, why don't we have a rec center? The second one is, why are the Kroger lines so long? But number one is, why does our community not have a community center or a recreation center? And I don't have a good answer for that, but you are the answer. You are how we track forward. So we've authorized you with startup funding. That's all you have so far. But what I need you to know is we have your back. This exploratory committee, many of the members who are here tonight, discussed this at length. It requires each one of our entities, our political subdivisions, to put some cash up front to get you started. And we greatly desire for you to use those funds wisely. They are public dollars. Again, you're bound by ethics laws, but if you need help, please ask, and ask ahead of time before you're in a pinch. So I will hand my personal phone number out to each one of you. I'm sure that many of the exploratory committee members will do the same, but lean on your staff for right now, and lean on each other. It's going to be kind of like a middle school dance, as you saw with the nominations. I mean, don't hesitate to speak frankly with one another. Yes, you're public officials, but like the best course of action is honesty, authenticity. Just tell each other what you're thinking. Two of you can get together and talk about like, hey, you know, I'd like to bring this up during the meeting, right, Mike?
Right.
Yeah. Three of you can even do that, right, Mike?
Right.
Yeah. The quorum is 4. So, I mean, just you can call each other, but you can't like send out an email to the entire group and say, hey, group, what do you think we should do here? You know, this immediate period, I think from now through October, should really be focused on gathering the input of the community. I think you're going to have to use data to determine what the community wants. There's publicly available data. There's data you can purchase. There's good.
How much money do we have? And then when you say talk to the community, what mechanism can we utilize to talk to the community? Right? Because there's free ways we can go out, like you said, stand in line at Kroger, or we can actually like survey people through professional surveying firms. So that's why I'm asking the question. And
Yeah.
since I'm in charge of the money, I should know these things.
Right. The money question, I think you'll get to later
Sure.
in terms of just what your collective budget is, and you're going to need to come up with a budget for next year as well. But the short answer is the sky is blue. You know, there is no restraint other than the law in terms of what you can do to get information, gather feedback. There's no exact playbook. I mean, social medias, you know, one, survey companies are others. There are 2 recommendations I have of people I think you should meet with in the very near future. One is the YMCA, and I'll explain why. I think it's important that you hear from an institution that does this as like their foundation core function, right? Tyler and I have connections with the CEO for Central Ohio and the Chief Operating Officer. They want to be here. Even if you meet with them to understand what data they have available to you, that doesn't obligate you to say, hey, we're going to have a YMCA instead of a community rec center like the Westerville Rec Center. It does not obligate you to do anything, but I think that's one that just like instantly advances you past point A, right? And you can say, what data do you have available? It also gives you a resource that they could potentially do work for free for you while you're doing your daily job. Like that's their job to make that data available. The other one is I really encourage you to meet with 2 core members of the original Eastern Delaware County Joint Recreation District from 2006, 2007, and that is Renee Bream and Martin Foreman. I've spoke to Martin Foreman specifically, and he would like to come and address this board and talk about lessons learned. Obviously, his family owns a large real estate brokerage, and you know he can probably give you some insight into land values and land that is not on the market per se. But I think honestly, he just wants what's best for the community. He doesn't live in Sunbury, Berkshire, or Galena, but obviously he's a high school soccer coach. Family is well connected, and he has the experience of going through this and it failing. And I think he will be able to say, here's what we did wrong, and here's how he can help. So those are the 2 groups of individuals I would highly recommend you meet with, whether that's in a public meeting or outside of a public meeting.
Is there staff available to the board that could try to facilitate having some of these people come and speak to the board as a whole?
Yes. I think I'll just say Mike Ringwell the main point of contact for right now. He's your legal counsel for right now. When I say for right now, I mean, we know what his rates are. We have a contract with him and we have a method to pay him. If you don't want him to be, that'll probably set you back a few months to go and source other legal support.
No, we're good with the city. Yeah.
Okay, good deal. The exploratory committee tried to take, we took a long time and a lot of diligence in trying to do a lot of the stuff that I think would get you hung up initially, like creating the bylaws. Obviously, they're subject to your review and approval or editing, but we think we made it as seamless as possible so you could go out as quick as possible and hit the ground running and set up a meeting schedule and potentially social media and those types of things. So with that said, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, when you say sprint, how fast? Like, do you expect us to break ground next year or?
No, I don't think that's possible. I mean, if you think of a timeline, I don't want to predestine what you do. You want to be diligent and sometimes slow wins the race. But if you think of, we want to break ground on a facility in 2 years or 3 years, just back into that. I mean, think of public financing, getting on the ballot, bonding authority for an entity that has no revenue source today. Making sure the community's bought in. And the last thing I'll say about why Berkshire, Sunbury, and Galena are together, and there are other entities that are not. We went to other entities and they either did not want to participate or they wanted to use a boundary that would have excluded some of our boundaries. For example, the big one at local school district, if we would have went with the school district, it would have included all the other townships and it would have used the school district boundary that would have excluded portions of Sunbury and Berkshire. That is not something we were willing to do. Also, it complicated things for districts or townships like Porter, who have 3 school districts. Genoa has 3 school districts and a parks levy. And honestly, Berkshire, Sunbury, and Galena, when you look at voter habits, overwhelmingly carry issues like the fire department, the library, school levies, school bonds, things like that.
So is the plan to have like a bond that we vote on, or can we bond from another public entity such as like a port authority?
I don't know about that, but I think it's going to be, I believe it's going to be the joint recreation district that, would be the
size.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know about the port authority question, but
that's
I wouldn't rely on anybody else other than yourself. That's,
okay.
I guess, what I would say. There's going to be a question in your mind when you think of physical facility, where is this going to be? Within the boundaries of our 3 entities, somewhere in there. It's not going to be built in the city of Delaware, I can tell you that.
Right.
And if an opportunity presents itself through the private sector, either in Galena, Berkshire, or Sunbury, that entity will bring that to you and tell you, hey, we may have an opportunity to partner together. Because even though we have appointed you, we are a separate political subdivision. You're like the fire department. They rely on us, we rely on them, but Sunbury doesn't pay the bills at the fire department pays the bills at the fire department.
Is there publicly available land that we should be assessing, or should we be looking? Sorry, maybe I'm going too deep at this point, but
yeah, you may be, but you're asking the right questions. I mean, look, I would encourage you to look at a map, drive around. You can look at publicly available space like the school district. That may be a good opportunity to partner with them, or the city of Sunbury, Berkshire, or Galena. We all have public lands, but if you think a community center, 25 acres minimum, that's what the Westerville Rec Center is on. Their broader area is probably like 75 acres. Land costs are extremely high. Okay. Thank you very much. Mayor Galena. Mr. Jeff, no.
This is exciting. We completed 1 phase and now we're moving to phase 2. And it's just an exciting moment to have you here tonight. You're an independent board. I think that's the bottom line of what the mayor just shared. You will set direction and we're here to support you as best we can. I want you to know there's legislation behind all of your local governments to establish this board. So your elected officials, our staffs are all on board with helping you as best we can to be successful. So the only thing I really want to say is a thank you, because we have a very talented team. Thank you for donating your time and your skills to this effort. As you lay this foundation for the future, I mean, as public servants, I mean, I hope we all are thinking about how can we leave a legacy and serve our community. You're in a position to really do that tonight. And I think we have the right team to do that. This will be a far-reaching, impactful thing for our communities. It's something that so many people that I've talked to really desire to have in the area. And like the mayor said, we're the fastest growing area in Delaware County. So I appreciate what you're doing. Mike, I don't know how long a night we have, so I'll leave it there. If you have any questions, you can always reach out, and I'm happy to help. Thank you. Tyler?
Thank you. I think the mayor's really covered most things, so I'll just reiterate a couple things. One, thank all 6 of you for agreeing to serve on this board. We did some work, but really the bulk of it will be with the 6 of you. All of our staffs are fully open to helping the board with anything that you may need. There's a question, work that needs to be done, send out an email, call, text. I don't think any one of us will say no to making sure that the JRD succeeds in its mission, which really is a blank slate. What do the people of the 3 communities want? So that's all we're really looking for. And I don't know if I have too much else. So thank all of you again.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you, Exploratory Committee, for all the work that you've put into this process so far. Without further ado, we'll get into some of the resolutions, unless anyone has any additional questions at the outset. Okay. And what you see in your packet tonight, these are really just kind of organizational documents, things that every public body has to essentially adopt. So behind tab 3, the first resolution that you have there is a resolution that would adopt bylaws for the Joint Recreation District. You'll see as the exhibit to that resolution, so page 4, that's the start of a draft of bylaws that the Exploratory Committee worked on and discussed to hopefully make it an easier for it to be an easier time for you to consider the bylaws themselves. So I'm happy to walk through and provide an overview article by article if that would be helpful.
I don't think so. Oh, I said I don't. Is that a question or?
Yes, it is a question.
Yeah, I don't, unless anyone else.
I think it looks pretty standard to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really just outlining where your offices will eventually be, your terms, which were established in the legislation from each of your political subdivisions that created the board. It talks about the officers' duties and terms, what happens if there are vacancies, and then standard open meeting regulations from Ohio Revised Code. So what constitutes a quorum for your meetings? The fact that the meetings are public. As the mayor alluded to earlier, the 3 of you could meet and talk about things as long as you don't do what's called a round robin, where you have 3 people in one coffee shop and then you cycle a person or 2 out and bring in 2 new people to talk about the same topic. That would be a violation of open meeting law. Also, we recommend using your public email addresses that have been created to discuss board business, because in Ohio law, it's not the means of communication that's a public record, it's the content. So when you send an email, it doesn't matter if it's on your personal email account or if it's on your JRD email account. If it's about JRD business, it is a public record, and that can lead to people requesting public records from your private communication. So we want to try and avoid sending private text messages, private emails, to avoid any kind of question about public business not being done in the public. Going back to the bylaws, talked about public meetings. At the end of the meeting, we'll discuss maybe scheduling some regular board meetings, depending on the cadence at which you want to conduct business. And then the final article is just how you amend the bylaws.
For example, who would fulfill a records request? Would it be like, would Sunbury help us with that? If somebody, submitted a records request, or is that upon the board to?
So legal counsel, if you hire legal counsel, would be available to help consult on that. And then it would likely be the secretary and the treasurer who would be the people responding, or potentially the chair.
Occupies.
Yes, yeah.
I see the principal office location is left blank. I mean, is that?
That's correct. As of right now, there's not been a discussion about perhaps the city of Sunbury or the village of Galena or Berkshire Township Hall being designated just as a point of contact for the JRD. So I don't know what the board's preference might be on that, but we can then designate it. And that's important for the publication of your records retention schedule that we'll get to a little bit later on.
So it's then up to the board to determine, which of those places we want to designate.
Yes, and in this initial phase where you don't have any physical facility, I think all of the political subdivisions that helped form you would be, supportive and be probably more than willing to serve as a point of contact. I don't want to speak too forcefully for them, but if you were to, build a rec center at some point in the future, obviously that could be changed to the main office for the JRD.
But is that something we want to?
Discuss now.
Yeah.
Welcome to use the city address. I'm sure any other entity would feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like this issue is kind of coming up again and again and again. The reason I guess I haven't necessarily volunteered us is because we're equal partners in this. I don't want to suggest that Sunbury is the lead. We're all equal partners. Having said that, you currently have a Sunbury email address. If we had a public records request, we would certainly help do the search on that type of thing. Again, we'll be supportive in whatever way. We agreed to host tonight's meeting. It doesn't mean this will be the only place where the meetings will be held. And so I think we can work through that with the board. But if you're looking to designate one, we certainly are willing to at least begin as the primary point of contact. And then as you decide moving forward where you want that to be, again, I think any one of the organizations would be happy to support you.
And then it's sounding to me like we probably need to figure out a location now, at least for purposes of posting public records policies and things like that, and it can be changed down the road.
Good deal.
Just,
Do we vote on that, or is that just?
I was going to say that I was going to ask the same question. Yeah.
No, if you come to a consensus, we'll just add it into the bylaws. And then if you move and adopt the resolution, that will adopt the bylaws with that amendment, with that revision in it.
Sunbury, the smart choice right now.
yeah, I think it also makes it easier for, the public too, if it's
I appreciate it.
consistent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Happy to do that.
Is that Berkshire supportive of Sunbury serving as the principal place for the, I want to say residence, not a place of business? Specifically said Sunbury really is the driving force behind this. I would like to add, I think a rotating meeting place, I think would show a connection of all communities, but Sunbury serving as the place for contact seems to make sense.
All right, so that address is 9 East Granville Street. We'll get that updated in the document.
I
Any other question? Oh,
I don't recall there being any other, blanks along those lines. And thank you. Then do we then need a motion
I was gonna say, yeah,
to
do we need a motion?
move to approve the bylaws?
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? All right, if not, Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Mr. Muzako,
Yes.
Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Prager.
Yes.
5 yeas, motion passed.
Right, the next resolution is behind tab 4. So this tab includes a resolution that would adopt a public records policy and a records retention schedule for the JRD. The proposed public records policy is Exhibit A to the resolution. It's 2 pages. Fairly brief and essentially reflective of what's in the Ohio Revised Code for providing public records. Behind that is a form public records request. So we work with a lot of public sector entities as clients. Best practices that we found from working with clients whenever they're undergoing audit, state auditors like to see that an entity has a form public records request on file. So if someone wants information from the board but doesn't know how to ask for it, you can provide them this form. Legal counsel can help you provide them this form to help direct their request to make sure that you can be as responsive as possible, but also within the bounds of the law. And then there's a should have printed landscape, but it printed vertically a sample records retention records request schedule. So it's an Excel spreadsheet in which we would essentially track any public records requests moving forward. And that information is also a public record. And it's included in the records retention schedule. Again, it's another item that state auditors usually request for public entities. And then Exhibit B is the records retention schedule that we propose for the board. So by adopting this resolution this evening, the Ohio Auditor of State requires that every public body adopt a public records policy and post it, that they also have a records retention schedule. Both of these documents we can help facilitate providing to the Ohio Auditor of State. It will go to the State Archives Ohio History Connection for their review and comment, and then it'll go to the Ohio Auditor of State to be put on file. But it essentially, for those of you who aren't familiar with a records retention schedule, it lays out the potential public records that the board could have, and then it, in the retention period column, determines how long the board has to, the entity, the JRD has to keep particular records. And then when that time is expired, then you are able to go through a process, whether it's simply documenting destruction of a public record or requesting that you can destroy a public record from the state if the state requires it. But it helps requesters as well know what public records you might have that they can find out more information. So all of your financial statements, emails, things like that will be covered in the records retention schedule. Any notes that you take in any of the board meetings and any deliberations, your personal notes are not public records. There are transient records as well. So if you have a draft of a document that you are working on, and then you have a final version of that document that ends up getting used as work product for the board and voted on, those drafts become transient records and they're subject to their own disposal, but they're usually less permanent. As I mentioned previously, your communications are public records, so best to do them through your email. There are certain exceptions to public records law. Communication with legal counsel is one of those exceptions. So if you have a legal question, please direct it to legal counsel and try not to include, well, please don't include people who are not on the board in that communication, because that can break attorney-client privilege when you say, you have a legal question, you send legal counsel a question, we provide a response, you forward that to someone else, that breaks that attorney-client privilege, which then could open that record up to availability from public request if that wasn't something you intended. Any questions about public records in general, records retention schedules? It seems like most of you have some interaction with public entities, so you're probably more than familiar.
Questions here?
You know, the motion to approve.
Yes, yeah, motion second.
Go ahead. I thought, were you gonna do it?
Oh, I'll motion.
I'll second it. Todd?
Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Mr. Mizako,
Yes.
Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Ms. Gregor, Ms. Watson. 5 yeas, motion passed.
Behind tab 5 is a proposed budget and process for selecting a bank. The fancy public depository is the fancy word for it. So Ohio Revised Code for a public body requires that there be somewhat of a open selection process for a bank. So there's an application that a public depository, a bank, has to provide you certain information to prove that they're basically financially safe to hold your deposits when you get money. So this resolution that you have would adopt the proposed budget, which is behind Exhibit A of that resolution. The Sunbury, Galena, and Berkshire have initially budgeted in calendar year 2025 to provide administrative expense support for the JRD in the amount of $20,000. That includes allocations for legal fees. As you can see, there are just some suggested appropriation line items there. Those aren't set in stone. Those can be modified right now, or they can be modified at any point in the future. The budget also has an actual column. So as the JRD starts paying bills, we'll track that, because as a public body, you can only spend money that you've appropriated. So you have to first budget it, and that appropriates it. Once it's appropriated, and as the entity gets more sophisticated, you'll have, your own expense software if you want to, budgetary software. Right now, you're just operating on a cash basis. What you get, you pay out, and record that. That can be through something as simple as a checkbook ledger, but Excel or a document like this can work just as well. The board does not currently have any revenue. So what's proposed is just what could be granted to you from the other political subdivisions. This is probably a good time to talk about what resources the board could eventually have. As a joint recreation district, you have the authority to levy a tax that's subject to a vote of all of the voters within your territory, which includes the geographical boundaries of Berkshire, Galena, and Sunbury as they modify. You also have the ability to finance, issue bonds to pay for facilities if you wanted to build particular facilities. There are multiple ways to do that, as Mr. Elliott alluded to earlier. As a JRD, if you have a dedicated revenue source, you'll be potentially pledging that revenue source for bonds. That's usually one of the most secure lines of credit that you can provide, which would get you the least amount of interest that you'd have to pay back on that borrowing. But there are other, within that realm, there's the ability to privately place bonds, either with a bank or with an entity like the county's treasury. You can go out to market, and this is something that we can go into much greater detail down the line when it actually becomes relevant. But you can go to the public market and issue bonds, and have those purchased. People give you money up front to basically pay for the construction and engineering of anything that you might want, and then you agree to pay that back over 10, 20, 30 years. So those revenue streams could potentially be available to you in the future. And as a public entity, you can accept grants. If you have entities that want to donate land to you, contribute things, resources to you, you can accept those. And we can help evaluate if there are any questions related to any of that. Are there any questions about this potential budget at the moment?
The $20,000 that we have, is that a situation where we have to use it or we lose it, or does it carry over into the following fiscal year? And I'm assuming the fiscal is the calendar year as well.
Correct. Yeah, the fiscal year for the JRD will be a calendar year. Sunbury, Berkshire, and Galena have an intergovernmental agreement. And that intergovernmental agreement is sets out the terms in which they have agreed to potentially share costs for supporting the formation of the joint recreation district. It depends on each, political subdivision's preference. They could potentially grant you a share of the money that they have already budgeted in for this year for them, to basically allow you to then spend it, or it can be on more of a reimbursement model where you can come up with, say you want to hire a consultant to do a community survey for facilities. You can determine what that might cost, and then I think talk to Sunbury, Berkshire, and Galena and say, hey, this is going to cost $10,000. Can you all chip in enough for us to be able to pay that? And then they can write you a check for $10,000, and then you can spend the check for $10,000.
So,
I mentioned something on that.
yeah,
In this particular case, this is what it's on kids all the time, but, please ask for permission, before you go spend anything. Like if it's gonna go beyond what has already been budgeted, just come up with a plan. I mean, as you're sprinting, be thinking about, what do I need in a month, 2 months, 3 months, especially for this year.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna build up a little bit of, like strategic insight into what you're gonna need for next year. Next year's a huge year. Next year is like, in a perfect world, you're gearing up to go to the ballot. And, you're coming up with like developing plans and financial plans and all of that. This year, like figure out your way, but ask for permission for sure. Don't go out and like spend 10,000 on data that you don't have, because then it's subject to, if we get caught off guard, it's subject to their trustees, their council, my council saying no. And that will not be good. Thank you.
To reiterate what the mayor said, yeah, you don't currently have any revenue, so
Very dependent.
you need someone to grant you some.
we don't have $20,000 is kind of what I'm hearing.
Granted the
Okay,
20,000.
But the political subdivisions are willing to grant you potentially $20,000
So I
this year.
understand that. So my question then is, let's say we have the plan. In my mind, I want to build out. Oh, obviously I shouldn't say I, excuse me, sorry. We would love to build out, and I've been thinking about this for a number of years. So I think I'd love to think about what we want to do in the next 30, 60, 90 days, 3 months, 6 months from now, right? And there will be financial impacts based on that. So if I'm under, if all of that by December 31st, I've only spent $18,000. Do I need to come and ask every time I need to cut a check if I'm under that 20? That's the question I'm asking.
I think everyone has agreed that they'll give you 20.
Okay.
Now, they'll have to be cognizant when they do their own individual budgets, that if you want to carry over that 2,000 to the next year, that they'll need to budget, 20,000 plus 2,000 to 22,000.
Right. That was my other question.
Our case. We're on a year-to-year budget, so budget dollars are reallocated in the next year, right? So what we've allocated for this year is there. It's available to you. We will go through this budget process again and reallocate for 2026. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm assuming whatever it is that we put together, we can submit for portions of allocation.
Yeah, suggested it would be great for us to have as much lead time as possible.
Yes. So when do you start to submit your budgets for 2020?
Start budgeting.
Okay.
September, October, November is really good months.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Oh, I said another meeting, 7 something.
Got this.
And I would like to add, part of that 20,000 is the administrative expenses, so let's factor in Mike's costs, the cost of insurance, and then what's left to be the cost of that additional thing that board does. We really want to make sure that you didn't encumber additional legal costs or insurance costs, you guys are good to go to begin with. We will clean this up and suspend additional funds in the betterment for the year.
A little bit about the IGA, so just so you know, based on population. And do they have a copy of the IGA? I don't know.
No, but we can provide it.
Other than the formula, rough numbers. Sunbury is responsible for 50%, Berkshire is responsible for 40%, Galena is responsible for 10%. Round numbers? Yes, sir. So for every $10,000, Sunbury covers 5, Berkshire covers 4, Galena covers 1. So you need another, back to my original point, stay ahead of things, have a good plan. If you need money, start talking to people about it early, because if you need another 10,000, you know, Berkshire's case is it's $1,000 impact, $5,000, $4,000. Don't hesitate to act, because we're promising our residents you're going to be successful. No pressure. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. And then another item that's discussed in this resolution is it would authorize the treasurer to go out and get the information from a bank in order for them to be your public depository. And that would be voted on a future date. And that would allow you to, if you were to get grant dollars up front from, say, the city of Sunbury, that you could deposit that in the bank account.
But as the treasurer, would I need to do that in conjunction with like the city manager? Like, would we need to go to a bank together? Do I need to do because you said we have to choose amongst a group of banks, it sounds like you mentioned. So do I need to like RFP a bank? What is the process, or is there a process?
You can go as far as doing a formal RFP. You do not have to.
Okay.
It is a public, open process. So a bank can petition you at any point in time saying, we would like to be your banking partner. I would recommend consulting with Sunbury, Berkshire, and Galena to see perhaps who they bank with and see if that's who you might want to bank with as well. You are a separate political entity, so you'll need to get your own EIN and then open your own account. And that will, when you have money to deposit into it, and then you'll be responsible, as I kind of talked about a little bit earlier, about doing your own record bookkeeping, and then providing that information annually to the Ohio Auditor of State for state audit consideration.
Since we're a separate entity, do we need a beneficial ownership BOI form, or since we're not a business, we don't have to do that?
I think as a public body, you'll be required to fill out BOI information as well. But that's just part of, in my experience, general account opening paperwork.
Yeah. Can I ask who the different governments use? Yeah.
As a common for us.
First Commonwealth? Okay. Seems like a common bank to
I think
utilize.
Galena does too, but I don't remember exactly.
All right.
Formerly
Delaware County Bank.
Yeah, it changed based on the interest rate fluctuations.
Use Fifth Third, Star, Ohio, and First Commonwealth. Seems like First Commonwealth is a common. I think you Star, Ohio, but that's really.
Yes, and that we'll get to the investment policy.
Do we need to vote to?
Yes, if you're comfortable with the proposed budget, vote in a second to adopt that, and then authorize our treasurer to go out and secure the bank account.
A motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Ms. Watson.
Yes.
Ms. Greiger,
Yes.
Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Mr. Musacchio.
Yes.
5 yeas, motion passed.
Tab 6 is authorizing the board to acquire insurance. So this would allow you with the chair, the treasurer, legal counsel to find an insurance quote. Again, you can pull.
Sorry, go ahead. What type of insurance do we need?
I recommend at a minimum getting directors and officers liability insurance.
And who does the city, I'm assuming the city has directors and officers liability insurance?
Yeah, we do. I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll need to research that.
Should use this paying ground insurance right there on the square.
Okay.
I think probably open the shop, like different carriers.
Oh, so they're more of a broker, thank you.
I tried a few county governments that they do use paying ground as an initial broker.
Okay.
And we can make some recommendations as well. We have a few clients that work on, well, many clients that are on the Ohio plan, which is a insurance pool of public entities. So we can help with gathering several quotes if you don't have your heart set on working with just a particular broker.
Do we have the opportunity to, and I know we're a separate entity, but could we not just piggyback off of this, like city's insurance and just pay a separate rider for that?
You potentially can.
Okay.
So there are some, an example is some port authorities, for example, their creations often of a county. Most counties are on Corsa, which is a county insurance pool. Corsa has been comfortable with insuring the board members of that port authority created by the county as basically almost being a subdivision of the county. That's something that if Sunbury or Galena or Berkshire is interested in entertaining, that they could ask if you could be essentially a rider on their insurance.
The STNG, as Sterling said, they're very similarly structured in the manner that you are.
Okay.
Is this something we can ask council to look into and,
Yes.
Present at the next board meeting, what the options are and the relative costs?
Yes, yes. And again, you don't currently have any revenue, so you're not going to be able to, buy insurance until you've got those quotes and money in the bank. But this authorizes certain the chairperson, vice chairperson, and the treasurer to go out and get those quotes.
Okay. A motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Mr. Musacchio,
Yes.
Ms. Greiger,
Yes.
Ms. Watson.
Yes.
5 yeas, motion passed.
Tab 7 is a discussion about potentially selecting general legal counsel. We have provided a engagement letter if you'd like to engage Bricker Graydon to serve as general legal counsel to the board. We've, as I said, helped the exploratory committee in considering establishing the JRD. We have experience working with joint recreation districts across the state. We actually helped form the original joint recreation district here. And then helped disband it when it didn't go so well. So we have some institutional knowledge that we would love to bring and help the board with. But this is not something that the board has to adopt tonight if you'd like to do some shopping. But it's here for your consideration.
And we're not required to do any competitive solicitation or anything along those lines.
Correct.
Is there a retainer in the bid here?
It's proposed as just an hourly
Just an hourly engagement?
Yes, no retainer.
So just on an as needed basis?
Yes.
So I'm just looking at the rates, who is what rate? So yourself, Mike, I'm assuming this is your firm?
Yes.
And so you like yourself?
I think 300, maybe a little bit lower per hour.
Okay.
So I'm the cost effective side of the equation.
I love that that's cost effective enough.
And we're able to vote on this now in light of our budget situation.
I was gonna say, we don't have money. How can we vote
Yeah.
on this?
So this would just be engaging legal counsel. If you want to then pay legal counsel bills, you'll need money for that. And that would be, we would bill the entity, and then the entity would be able to talk to political subdivisions and say, hey, our monthly bill this month was $2,000. We need $2,000.
It is in the budget, so.
Yeah, we already have up to
So,
a certain
yeah.
amount.
But to that point, legal fees for 2025 would not exceed $10,000.
And so this is just the resolution, not necessarily the proposal that's attached to it. Is that correct? Or this is approving the proposal?
The resolution would provide authority to sign the engagement letter.
Okay. I'll leave that to you then to decide.
Recommend record grading on this particular item. We also represent the school district. I don't know if that's good or bad. Just want to let you know, they do really good work. They've done great work for the exploratory committee. I personally know Mike. I've known him for a long time. He's worked for the county, He's not only a CPA, but he's an attorney, and he lives in the county. He wants this to be successful. He's also an Orange Township trustee. So you're getting like the triple hit for $300 an hour, and the ceiling of being 10,000. If you need more, come back to city council. Thanks.
Full disclosure, I'm also on the board of the Big Walnut Area Chamber of Commerce. So we got.
Well, that's just.
You are invested in getting this done.
It's going to be a great addition. However, in addition, kind of separate to that, should you not be happy with Bricker, you can sign 12 engagement letters and pick a law firm you want to actually do the work.
Yeah.
The engagement letter just lets Bricker and Grady do work to bill you. If you don't like it, I think you will, but if not, you could just stop giving them work and sign it.
No early termination fees.
No. Well, there's no retainer, so there you go.
I mean, would the board like to discuss this more, or would we ready to?
I'm good either direction, seriously.
I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
That's why.
So then we need a motion.
A second.
So moved.
I'll second.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Ms. Greiger,
Yes.
Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Mr. Muzakio.
Yes.
5 yeas, motion approved.
Thank you very much. Look forward to working with you. Behind tab 8 is a potential investment policy for the board to adopt. Now, this isn't pertinent until you have monies to invest. So this doesn't have to be adopted tonight either, but you can consider it and adopt it tonight if you would like. It essentially allows you to invest in everything that is permissible under the Ohio Revised Code. There are more conservative investment options available to public bodies, and the policy stipulates what some of those look like. For example, you can't just go down to Edward Jones and open a mutual fund account with them. There's something somewhat similar with the state's treasury in that they have what's called Star Ohio, where you can invest short-term dollars. And it's a very liquid form of investment, but it's also a lower rate of return generally because it is a shorter term, a more liquid form of investment. So you can consider the policy tonight. You can adopt it tonight. Just previewing a little bit of the conversation that we'll go into in the Ohio ethics law. As public board members, you have certain requirements upon you. So beyond having to meet in the public and being subject to public record law, the Ohio Auditor of State has interpreted some legislation that they had enacted roughly a year ago. It might be a little bit more, that you all are required to take a 8-minute online fraud training and provide a certificate of completion of that fraud training. That will be in the back of that ethics law tab that we'll talk about. But as a treasurer who is responsible for investing, if you want to invest in commercial paper or certain other investment types, there is certain training provided by the treasurer of state that you have to take those additional trainings to be able to do that additional investing authority. other than those particular investment types, the revised code allows you to basically hold your money in a bank account and in very liquid, secure forms of investment that have public pledges behind them, collateral, so that if there was ever any risk to those financial institutions, they've pledged that your money is secure. Star Ohio is one of those investment options that you can put money into without having that additional training. But we will be happy to go into additional details on that training when the time's right. Up for the board to consider whether or not to adopt the investment policy tonight. Yeah. Yeah, here's a red line version here. So there's a resolution, there's an investment policy, and then there's a red line behind that investment policy. The red line is to the city of Sunbury's investment policy. The changes that you mostly see are typographical, and that it's just replacing names, director of finance with treasurer. There's a few instances where we broadened the investment references just by referring back to the revised code.
In the event we were to approve the investment policy this evening, we would be free to change it in any future board meeting.
By board resolution. And that's true for all of the documents that we've talked about this evening. At any point, they're subject to board vote to change or modification.
I think it really matters. I mean, Greg, do you have a?
No, I think this is pretty straightforward. So I'll motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
Who's the second? Yep. Okay. Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Muzako.
Yes.
Mr. Coy.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Ms. Greiger.
Yes.
5 yeas, motion passed.
Right, and then tab 9. We provided you in tab 9 is a manual that the Ohio Ethics Commission provides. As appointed public officials, you are subject to Ohio's ethics laws. So we encourage you to read through the overview and ask us any follow-up questions that you have. Most of it is pretty general, conflicts of interest. If you have a personal business that you can't have that personal business do business with the JRD and you be involved in the decision-making process. So there is some nuance with finding when there potential conflicts of interest arise. You're not required to do any reporting to the state. I know some of you are familiar with different roles where you're required to do financial disclosures. That's not required of you as JRD board members. And then, as I mentioned, there is also required by the Ohio Auditor of State, essentially, if anyone suspects fraud, you are obligated to report it to the Ohio Auditor of State. You can obviously work with legal counsel if you ever have any concerns that something doesn't seem right, or if you should be doing X, Y, and Z. As legal counsel, we also are proactive in trying to flag potential issues before they become issues. So if you ever have a question about any of the requirements that fall on you as a JRD board member, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask. Are there any questions about any of Ohio ethics law, public records law in general at this point? Okay. And then tab 10 is a document that the exploratory committee assembled as a potential purpose for the board to consider responsibilities that the exploratory committee would like you to adopt, and then a potential even timeline for some action items. I think, as Mayor St. John said, there's been a lot of community interest in the work that you are looking to undertake, and I think the community always likes to see results, and as part of that, probably determining the community's temperature on the next steps moving forward as soon as possible is probably, you know, a recommended priority for the board. This isn't something that you have to formally adopt, but it's in the packet for discussion. And I don't know if any of the city.
I'd love to. Thanks.
John.
Are you inviting me to speak?
Yes. It was the eye contact.
Here's what I highly recommend. You print this in multiple places where you're going to see it every single day. When you look back and like, what am I supposed to be working on? I feel like this captures it. I mean, the spirit of it is this. We want to provide recreational opportunities for people of all ages within the boundaries of our community. And we not only want to do that like one time, we want to build an engine that does that over time. You're just like the folks that are going to like dig the first shovel of dirt. Okay. And you truly are laying a legacy. The responsibilities of this board will change over time, but I think it's really important in terms of the way we bulleted these out. And this has evolved over the past years. We started meeting with Berkshire and Galena. You know, you've got to talk to people and understand what they want, but you have to be wise with your time. If you go and try to talk to just your inner circle, you're going to hear what you want to hear. You're going to be hearing what everybody is talking to you about. You have to hear the people that don't want a recreation center too, and take that into account. But the goal is to develop a community center and this economic engine that drives recreation for people of all ages. And we're really excited to see your work. We put a timeline out here. This is obviously a goal, but if you want to see dirt moving in 2 years, 3 years, I know that 2 years, right? Like you have to hit this goal if you want it to be in 2 years. You're going to spend a year working on a ballot initiative and public finance, at least. I promise you.
That's accurate.
I mean, so think of what the community wants, and then you're going out and creating a capital stack, right? Like you're coming up with how much is this going to cost to get land, and who are we going to work with to get sewer, and electric, and roads, and all these things that eat into your budget. So you're going to end up having this financial plan, and then you start getting the public really engaged when you start showing pictures of like, this is what it could be, right? What do you want it to be? How big? We want to do this in phases. We want to kind of go to the ballot with, you know, a good, better, best, you know, approach. Like, hey, we can get good. We might be able to get better, but we're going to shoot for the stars to get best. So that's where you're putting all your chips on the line, right? I know I'm rambling. I'm so passionate about this because there's no better time than now to do the work that you're doing. Just don't spend a lot of time thinking about like, how do we get this done? Like you all know people. You're very smart individuals. You have great backgrounds. Use your personal skills and your professional skills to get this moving. Because if you don't, nobody else will. I promise you that. Council will be looking for updates. The trustees are going to be looking for updates. I encourage you to look at like our schedules and say, hey, in 2 months, we're going to go and provide an update to the city council of Sunbury. We're going to go in 2.5 months to the village of Galena. Because you think about it, like we're the ones funding you, right? Like, you know, you live in our communities. If you want to build a budget for next year, what's the best way to do it? Like go and provide an update to the city council. I won't be doing that work for you. I would love to be able to say, you know what, I read in their minutes, they're well on their way. I just have a feeling it's hard to get off the ground. That's why we did so much of the legwork for you over the past year. So you could do this in one meeting and focus all the rest of your time on building a community center. Sound good? Awesome.
So we did want maybe take a little bit of time, talk amongst ourselves a little bit about what you hear with respect to the exploratory committee's charge to you. if you've got questions, I mean, I think this is really a time to talk a little more about not the mechanics of how a JRD works. We can help you with that. Just really about the task that's in front of you. And Maria, I would invite you to join in on this conversation if you've got anything to say as well. So thoughts, comments, observations?
Well, I really appreciated the mayor's providing us contacts that we can work with. And I guess, so in my mind, it seems like that the logical next step would be to maybe try to set up a time when these people can come in and talk to us, so we can maybe hear a little bit more about what has been effective and what hasn't. And I mean, I certainly have some ideas, but I don't know, maybe we'll hear from somebody who's done this before that's really not a good idea. So in my mind, I think it would be time effective and helpful to have that be the subject of the next meeting, and to see if somebody would be able to facilitate. I think you said there's contacts at YMCA, Renee.
And Martin.
Freenan.
I'd be happy to make introductions, and I know this is being recorded, that's the only way to increase that.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to make, here's a potential solution to get you in front of them and where they can be in front of all of you. Perhaps I could make introductions for Renee Breen, Martin Foreman. Those are the folks who did the JRD 15 years ago and it failed. They would love to speak with you. What if I introduced to the chair and vice chair as a pre-meeting, have an introduction, and then schedule some time where they meet with the entire board at the next meeting? Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds
That
fantastic.
sounds fantastic, and it
And
would be
then
a great way to be time effective.
Depending on how effective we are with our schedules and everything, we could get, the CEO and the COO of the YMCA to present to you, or meet with the chair and the vice chair. I mean, I'd love to be able to do a pre-meeting with somebody,
Mhm.
say, here are our chair and our vice chair. So it's kind of a warm, handoff to the board as a whole. What do you think of that approach?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, because we spend a lot of time, we spend a lot of time looking at legal documents and policies and all that. You're not gonna have to do that going forward, other than setting up bank accounts and things like that. All your time should be focused on who do we talk to that we can leverage to go spread the word and give us feedback and help us finance this thing.
For me, the biggest thing that comes to mind right now is other jurisdictions, cities have done this before. Let's lean on them. I see new rec centers popping up throughout Columbus. Could we reach out to them? I believe Hilliard has one that's coming up with the partner with OSU. Could we get that? Things like that. That'd be fantastic. Up Arlington just opened theirs. It's huge. Fantastic.
In our communities, I'll have contacts with OSU, Ohio Health.
Yeah.
Greenville has a joint recreation district. Theirs is a little bit different than yours in terms of structure. Powell and Liberty Township, I believe, have one. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's not right. Powell.
YMCA is owned by Liberty Township.
Okay. I don't know. There's something where they have a collective tax paying into
Yes.
for the debt. New Albany and the New Albany Local Plains School District, I think, have a joint recreation district.
Mhm.
It's either a divide and conquer or a hyper-focused, how do we get, information out of those entities that are doing things like you said, Bernie. Like there's other successful communities that are developing. I just don't want you to spin your wheels and think anybody else is going to do it for you. It won't happen. So you've got to come up with a plan.
Correct.
Do we have anyone available to us that might be able to talk to some people initially?
No.
No, okay, so it would have to be
I
us
mean,
individually.
these
Okay.
folks or me or the mayor or Tyler or your friends.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have like a staff per se, other than these two right here.
So Maria, I think you're trying to chime in, aren't you?
I was. Thank you for noticing that. Well, thank you for allowing me to join remotely, that first and foremost, and to the group. I look forward to meeting all of you in person. I want to ask, do we have any current information from the community, feedback, any focus groups that have been held to discuss, the likes, dislikes? Do we have any previous information that's been gathered?
About where trying to, but we have Parks Master Plan, we have survey results from.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, I think we can certainly compile what the city of Sunbury has, but it's certainly not a comprehensive analysis of where the community is. I think that's when you look at the purpose statement and some of the initial responsibilities. I mean, one of the charges here really is go out to the community at large, at least the three communities that are the subject of the JRD, and do it in a systematic way as well. So as the mayor's indicated, I mean, just asking, I mean, you'll get some anecdotal information. It'll be important. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're going to have some real data to be able to leverage. But yeah, I'll work with the other jurisdictions and see if I can at least gather what they've got on parks and any other data that they might have gathered. And we'll help feed that to the board.
data, this is a simple one that you could do. Google Maps.
Maybe go up there just so that Maria can hear you.
Google Earth, type in recreation center, type in fitness center, type in gymnasium, something like that. And what you're going to see, especially when you zoom out over our particular geography, is we're like in a recreational desert. Okay. New Albany has some, Delaware has some, Centerburg has a dang YMCA. Westerville, we have nothing. I mean, that should be data point number one, right? Like there's something wrong here. But to Maria's question, if it were me, I would talk to the YMCA and be like, how do you do it? And that doesn't sign you up for anything. It's just saying, here's all the publicly available data we have and we're willing to share with you. This is why we want to be in your community, because we did a phone survey 5 years ago. We've seen the growth numbers. I think they're going to really quickly and objectively say, without talking to anybody, why this is like a perfect location for a community center. Because right now, if we're just trying to figure out, you know, what Sunbury, Galena, and Berkshire did separately, we didn't have the same methods for gathering information. It's going to be hard to piece together. This is your ship to sail.
I think we were contemplating having some type of a pre-meeting with the YMCA contact. I mean, and potentially also Mr. Freeman and I'm sorry,
Renee Green, Mr. Green,
sorry,
and Martin Foreman.
Foreman. I'm just wondering if there's anyone else that, because, you know, I think we want to make our next meeting as effective and efficient as possible and to have as much information as we can to start trying to figure out what we want to do to move forward. So I'm just trying to think of, you know, maybe Mr. Coy, do you know anybody that, you know, has successfully done this, that maybe one of us could talk to see if it might be worth having a larger conversation?
I don't know of any. I personally don't know who's worked on it behind the scenes, who gets all the legwork done. I just see the end results and I've been involved with that. But no. So
I know
front end work is where we need to be.
I know developers and contractors and builders, and I mean, I work with those groups often, so we can, like, I know Racilli just built the new high school out in, I think it's New Albany, and I think it's beautiful. It's like a beautiful, or they renovated it and redo it. And I know the people who kind of did that project. So if we want construction people, I can get some of those people. I know the group they're renovating Lower.com Stadium. So I can have them talk to us if that's something we're interested in. So, I mean, there's lots of people who are going to want to talk to us about this. So we just got to cast a wide net and we'll get a lot of information, I promise you.
If I were doing it, I would be calling New Albany. They just built a field house, or they're building a field house as a part of their high school. I would be calling the city of Delaware, figure out how they brokered an agreement to bring a YMCA there. I would be talking to the Westerville Rec Center about operating budgets, capital plans, how many bond cycles did it take to get this facility up and running. It's historical data, but it's relevant because they were the same size that we are now when they passed their initial parks levy and bond. Yeah. Are there any other suggestions? I mean,
I was just going to say, I mean, if as you think about options, certainly you can feed those to us. We'll work with the chair to help put together subsequent agendas, so to make sure that they are the most, effective, that we're spending our time wisely during that period of time. So Maria, was there anything else you wanted to add? I know you asked the question about data. Anything else?
No, I'm good for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
To try to resolve before our next meeting, or
Do we have a schedule for meetings?
I don't think we do. That's one of the things we talked about here.
Meetings for meetings.
Yep.
Is the board interested in potentially adopting a virtual meeting policy? We would be happy to draft one, but it essentially would allow if,
We
it can be
should,
challenging to get all 6 people in a room at the same time.
definitely should have that.
So, okay, we'll have that ready for the next meeting.
Nice that we can do that now.
Yeah.
It is nice.
That could have been useful in the past.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I mean, if we do a rotating meeting location, we'll just have to make sure that every facility that we meet has the capability of doing that. So with that, I mean, that is a good question. We probably should, not do we want to, we should talk about the next meeting or a meeting schedule. Otherwise, that gets to be a real challenge to chase down.
Does this time frame work for everybody? Start that. 6 o'clock? It doesn't have to be on a Thursday, but just pick it. In general.
it varies on days, but 6 o'clock, I think generally.
You want to just have the meeting here, the next meeting, just so for some continuity, when we do the first couple? Maybe.
Do we have any thoughts about how frequently we want to meet?
It's good. That's my suggestion.
Say it again.
Monthly would be, I think that's good. I mean, we can meet more often. I just don't think we'll have a lot to talk about if we met more often.
We do need a meeting, we can add a meeting.
Yeah, we can always call a meeting, right? If we,
48 hours notice.
Yes, yeah, 48 hours is a minimum notice.
Who would post, like for instance, if we needed to do a special meeting, who would post that? We'd have to post that ourselves?
Or bylaws provide that publication of your notice is sufficient if it's on the websites
Okay, I
of the
forget.
political subdivisions.
Okay.
that'd be all 3 though, right? All
Yeah, I guess whose website would it be?
Ideally, all 3, but publication on one would be sufficient.
Oh, okay.
Is that something you can help us?
Yeah, we can, and that's exactly what we did for this meeting. So the political jurisdictions posted it the way they normally post a public meeting.
One of the things I'm looking at is, as I'm going to print this all over my house, is this date of October 31st. That gives us 5 meetings. Is that enough? I don't think it is, personally. But I think maybe initially we have a little bit more, and then if we have to spread out as we have assignments, we could, but.
And I guess that was kind of maybe why I was bringing up what I was, because I'm not sure if you want to talk tonight about, what we all want to be ready to talk about at the next meeting, or do we want to have another meeting to have that conversation?
I think besides her, we're all kind of here,
Yeah, I mean,
and it was hard to find a date, so if we can.
yeah, I mean, it would make sense to me if we kind of walked away from here with everybody kind of thinking about what they're gonna do, so
Yeah.
that when we come back, and I think 4 weeks from today would be May 1st. Does that work for everybody?
It's for me.
make May 1st work.
Every game.
Maria, does that work?
It does.
Okay. May 1st, okay.
That does work for me too. May 1st.
You're saying the girls have a game.
Our girls have a game and boys have soccer practice. Sorry, our kids play on all of the same sports teams, so we know each other's schedule.
Not on my calendar. I can make it work one way or another.
And also, not that I want to, but we could start later if we had to also. If it interferes with different sports schedules.
I mean, right now, I don't
Must have
have
gotten
a day either, but I imagine I probably will.
No, I was gonna say, I don't see it on the calendar personally, but
Okay, it should be fine.
May 1st,
Yeah, May 1st,
6 fine.
or what?
6 is still fine.
May 1st at 6, yeah.
Is Sudbury comfortable with hosting as well?
Yep, we can do that.
Sure.
So I'll just offer this up. So I think in terms of the agenda for the next meeting, it sounds like the mayor has offered to at least try to get the chair and the vice chair to at least meet again, those former JRD members and perhaps an audience with the YMCA leadership. Hopefully that can happen, but we can also work toward getting them to the next meeting, see if they're available, at least that organization. So that would be one thing. And then the other thing, I guess, as I'm jotting down notes here is that, maybe some of these other recreational districts in and around the area, we can at least begin to assess their availability and interest and willingness to support or assist us and see if, if there's anyone else that might have some availability. And we'll try to make it so that they're not talking about the same thing. I mean, they're trying to support you in other ways. The other thing that we'll need to get started on pretty quickly is if we're going to go out and engage a professional to assess or to assist with the assessment, it would probably be helpful for us to start to put together whether that's a scope of work on what it is they're going to do, how it is they might go about doing that work. And we could bring that back to the group as well for you to begin to react to. Yes, that's what we think that would kind of get us directionally started in terms of what we want to do from a data gathering perspective.
That's a good question. That's a really good point. So, like I said, when I say I've been thinking about this for years, I'm not exaggerating. I have a scope from a consultant. Can I share that with everybody? So if I share that with everyone's public email address, that's okay.
Yes,
We can then, okay.
Yeah, but what you don't do is don't react to it. Don't say, I like this part of it. I like that part of it. Oh, maybe we could don't do that. Now you're deliberating.
Okay.
And that's what's in violation of the Public Open Meetings Act.
Just share.
Alternatively, what you could do is send it to me and we'll push it out. And what we'll do is we'll push it out through a blind copy process. So everyone will have it and it'll avoid the potential for some kind of a round robin discussion.
The temptation.
The temptation of a round table. Yes.
Yep.
And then, of course, we've got a couple of administrative items that we'll work with you on that we'll need to take up at the next meeting. Meaning the depository, that type of stuff.
Looking for a bank.
Yeah.
Thinking about insurance brokers. We'll send out the links to the Ohio Auditor of State's fraud training. So if you wouldn't mind taking that as well, it's just, I think, about 8 minutes at most. And then there's a certificate that I think it generates. And if you can send that's all the audit documentation we need to prove that the training's been completed. And then we'll work on that virtual meeting policy for the next meeting as well.
Go out and start sourcing and soliciting insurance brokers and bank accounts, or wait until after the next meeting?
You're fully authorized to do that. And if we can help as legal counsel, or if you'd like to, I'm sure if any of the city, village, or township staff would be probably willing to help you provide their information as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, unless there's any other business.
Yes, where we go. Second.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Ms. Krieger,
Yes.
Mr. Coy,
Yes.
Mr. Muzakio.
Yes.
5 yeas, we are adjourned.
Before you
Hi,
leave,
everyone.